Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. Welcome back. We're going to be reading chapter 2 in Beyond Religion, which is our new Let's Read segment book, and it is written by the Dalai Lama. So we just got finished reading on secularism, or particularly rethinking secularism, and chapter 2's focus is on our common humanity. And the first section is titled, How We See Ourselves. As a matter of observation, how people treat their fellow human beings and indeed the world around them largely depends on how they conceive of themselves. We all have many different ways of seeing who we are, and these different views influence our behavior. For instance, we may consider ourselves in terms of gender as men or women, or as followers of this or that religion, or as members of this or that race or nationality. We may think of ourselves in terms of family, as a father or a mother, for instance. We may also identify with our occupation, our level of education, or our achievements. Depending on which perspective we take, we raise different expectations of ourselves, and this in turn affects our behavior, including our treatment of other people. Everyone has his or her own separate identity. Because of this, it is of primary importance in any attempt to develop a genuinely universal approach to ethics to have a clear understanding of what unites us all, namely our common humanity. We are all human, all 7 billion of us. In this respect, we are all 100% the same. To begin then, let us consider what it is that actually makes us human. Well, first of all, it is our simple physical reality. This body of ours, made up of so many parts, bones, muscles, blood, so many molecules, atoms, and so on. At the basic material level, there is no qualitative difference between the matter that makes up a human being and, for example, the matter that makes up a lump of rock. In terms of material constitution, a lump of rock and our human bodies are both ultimately made up of aggregations of minute particles. Modern science suggests that all the matter of the cosmos is being endlessly recycled. Many scientists even hold the view that the very atoms in our bodies once belonged to stars far away in time and space. Yet it is clearly the case that a human being belongs to quite a different category of things from a lump of rock. We are born, we grow, and then we die, as do plants and all other animals. However, unlike plants, we also have conscious experience. We feel pain and we experience pleasure. We are sentient beings, what in Tibetan we call semden. During one of my many discussions with my late friend, the neurobiologist Francisco Varela, we talked about what it is that distinguishes sentient forms of life from plant forms of life. As I recall, he suggested as a criterion an entity's ability to move itself from here to there, or words to that effect. If an organism can move its whole body from one place to another to escape danger and survive, or to obtain food and to reproduce, then it may be regarded as a sentient being. This definition interested me, since it implies that, even from a scientific point of view, what defines such a living being has something to do with the ability to feel pleasure and pain, and to respond to these feelings, even if the responses are predominantly or even entirely instinctive. At the most basic level, the ability to respond to one's surroundings with conscious experience is what we can consider, in the broadest sense, mind. I'm so sorry, my hair is crazy. I just washed it, so it's like everywhere. This is not the place to embark on a lengthy treatment of the vast issue of what constitutes mind and the ways in which the human mind is distinguished from that of other beings. So a few words will have to suffice here. The primary ingredients of human experience, according to modern science, are the data of our senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. At another level of perception are our subjective experiences of these basic sensations, whether we experience them as being pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, or some combination of these. As far as we know, we share this kind of apprehension of sensory experience as pleasurable or painful with other animals. Birds and mammals, for example, seem to apprehend sensory experience in a manner very similar to ours, while other types of animals like fish or insects seem to differ from us considerably in this respect. However wide and varied the spectrum of sentience may be across different kinds of animals, it is apparent that all beings which have conscious experience are oriented toward the pursuit of those experiences which are pleasant and the avoidance of those which are unpleasant or painful. In this fundamental respect, we humans are no different from other animals. Like them, we seek to avoid suffering and are naturally drawn toward experiences that are pleasant and happy. But if this fundamental orientation is a defining feature of sentient beings in general, humans constitute a rather special category. Clearly, there is more to being human than merely responding to sensory experience. We are not like cats or dogs, for instance, which by and large respond to their experiences purely on instinct. We humans have evolved over many thousands of years a tremendous complexity, which distinguishes us from all other animals. This difference is reflected in the large size of our brains, which have a much more developed frontal cortex than the brains of other species. And the next section, human consciousness and empathy. In discussing the complexity of the human mind, I am not just thinking of our intellectual or rational processes and our ability for self-reflection, but rather of the entire range of our conscious experience, which includes not just thoughts, imagination, and memory, but also feelings and emotions. In fact, when I talk about mind or experience in this rather general way, I'm usually thinking of the Tibetan words sem or mind and shepa or cognition, both of which refer not just to the predominantly intellectual activities normally associated with words such as mind and mental in English and other Western languages, but rather to all areas of our inner experience, including feelings and emotions, which in those languages are often described as matters of the heart. Some time ago, Western scientists began to conduct neuroscientific tests on long-term Tibetan meditators to measure the biological effects of their contemplative practices. On one occasion, I was told, the scientists were giving a talk on their experiment to a group of monks at the Nemal Monastery here in Dharamsala. To demonstrate their techniques, one of the scientists wore on his head a white cap, from which protruded a great mass of wires and electrodes. On seeing him, some of the monks burst out laughing. The scientists assumed they were laughing at the strange sight of a Western scientist with wires attached to his head. But it turned out they were also laughing in surprise that the wires were only attached to the head and not to any other areas of the body. After all, if the intention was to measure qualities such as compassion or loving kindness, wouldn't other parts of the body, such as the heart, be equally important? These days, we are better versed in the contemporary scientific models and are no longer so surprised by the centrality that modern science accords to the brain. And the scientists, too, have changed their methods somewhat. They now include measurements to detect changes in the heart. As to what distinguishes the human mind from the minds of other beings, a few major features are immediately apparent. We humans have a strong and subtle capacity for remembering, seemingly much greater than those of many other animals, which allows us to project our thoughts into the past. We also have the ability to project our thoughts into the future. In addition, we have very powerful imaginations and a highly developed capacity for communication through symbolic language. And perhaps most distinctively, we have the capacity for rational thought, the ability to critically evaluate and compare different outcomes in both real and imaginary situations. While other animals may possess some of these capacities to a limited degree, they do not match humans in their level of sophistication. Along with these characteristics, we have a further quality, which is central to our identity as human beings, our instinctive capacity for empathy. Of course, we are not alone in this. Some other animals exhibit behavior that seems to indicate empathy. Nonetheless, it is an essential human trait. When we see someone in pain, even a stranger on the street or a victim of natural disaster we see on television or hear about on the radio, we have an instinctive response to his or her suffering. And not only that, we also experience an instinctive urge, whether we act upon it or not, to do something about it, to help that stranger on the street, or to ease the sufferings of those we see on TV. In the same way, when we witness people triumphing over adversity, our instinctive ability to empathize with the experiences of others allows us to share their joy. I think part of the reason so many of us love to watch films, sports, and plays, to read entertaining books, and so on, is that in addition to the thrills they bring, they give us the chance to feel others' joy and sorrows as if they are our own. We naturally enjoy empathic experiences and often seek it out in our lives. An example is the joy we take in the delight of small children. We love to see their faces light up when we smile at them, give them something, or tell them a story. In the same way, we naturally enjoy the happiness of our loved ones. Everyone prefers to see others smiling rather than frowning. Since we are social animals, that is, since our survival and flourishing depend on being part of a group or a community, our capacity for empathy has profound implications for our pursuit of happiness and well-being. So the next chapter, or the next segment here, is happiness and suffering. That we all seek a happy life is, I think, a claim which needs no justification. No one wishes for difficulties or troubles. This is something that the very constitution of our bodies confirms. Medical science increasingly suggests that a person who is happy and peaceful, free from fear and anxiety, will enjoy tangible health benefits. It is also a matter of common sense that even people afflicted by illness are much better off if they have a positive outlook. So I consider it a simple truth that this body of ours is meant for a happy life. A happy mind is a healthy mind, and a healthy mind is good for the body. But human happiness and suffering, unlike those of other animals, are not straightforward. A dog may find happiness by eating a good meal and then going on to the porch to lie down. While we may relate to such simple pleasures, it is clear that they are in no way sufficient for genuine human satisfaction. The never-ending human quest for happiness and avoidance of suffering explains not only humankind's greatest achievements, but also the evolution over many millennia of this large brain of ours. Even the very concept of religion, I think, has arisen from this quest. For in the course of life, we inevitably face problems that are beyond our ability to control. To maintain hope and to keep our spirits up, therefore, we develop faith, and to support faith, we turn to prayer. And prayer is a core element of religion. Similarly, I would suggest the extraordinary human achievements in science and technological innovation over the past few centuries also stem from the urge to overcome suffering and achieve happiness. However, although our extraordinary mental sophistication distinguishes us humans from other forms of life and drives our astonishing success as a species, this very mental complexity is, at the same time, the source of many of our most enduring difficulties and hardships. Most of the problems we face in the world today, such as armed conflict, poverty, injustice, and environmental degradation, have arisen and are maintained by complex human activity. Furthermore, our most persistent sources of inner suffering at an individual level, fear, anxiety, and stress, for example, are also closely connected to our mental complexity and our excitable imaginations. Michael Singer talks a lot about this in Living Untethered. If you want to look at it from his point of view, he's an amazing human being. You should definitely check that book out. I did read it on my channel, but obviously if you want to read it in the actual way to read, it's available as well, I think on Amazon and used bookstores everywhere. I think it's one of the best sellers next to The Four Agreements and The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I also read. And I think both of those authors touch on what the Dalai Lama is saying right now. Fundamental equality. That's our next section here, and the last one. In our quest for happiness and the avoidance of suffering, we are all fundamentally the same and therefore equal. This is an important point, for if we can integrate an appreciation of this fundamental human equality into our everyday outlook, I am very confident that it will be of immense benefit, not only to society at large, but also to us as individuals. For myself, whenever I meet people, whether they are presidents or beggars, whether dark or fair, short or tall, rich or poor, from this nation or that, or of this faith or that, I try to relate to them simply as human beings who, like me, seek happiness and wish to avoid suffering. Adopting this perspective, I find, generates a natural feeling of closeness, even with those who, until that moment, were complete strangers to me. Despite all our individual characteristics, no matter what education we may have or what social rank we may have inherited, and irrespective of what we may have achieved in our lives, we all seek to find happiness and to avoid suffering during this short life of ours. For this reason, I often make the point that the factors which divide us are actually more superficial than those we share. Despite all the characteristics that differentiate us, like race, language, religion, gender, wealth, and many others, we are all equal in terms of our basic humanity. And this equality is corroborated by science. The sequencing of the human genome, for example, has shown that racial differences constitute only a tiny fraction of our genetic makeup, the vast majority of which is shared by all of us. In fact, at the genome level, the differences between individuals appear more pronounced than those between different races. In light of these considerations, the time has come, I believe, for each one of us to start thinking and acting on the basis of an identity rooted in the phrase, "we human beings." I love that. I really, if I'm being honest, do not know much about the Dalai Lama, but I've only heard really good things. I've also heard a lot of conflicting things about how people feel about him, as I think that goes with anybody who lives in an extreme manner, no matter what it is. But I really, really like his message there. We are all connected. We are all from the same thing, whether you call it source, God, universe, your higher power, whatever it is that you call it that you're comfortable with. We are all from the same thing. Our color of our skin, or what we worship, or the type of food we culturally eat, those are superficial. Those are not constitutional of us being connected and us being inherently the same to our core. So I think it's really interesting because I'm the type of person that I don't understand hate. I don't understand being racist or bigotry. I don't understand hating something just because I don't understand it. There's lots of things that go on in the world and lots of choices people make that I don't understand. And that's why sometimes we say things are weird, because we don't understand them. We don't have to like them. We don't have to agree. We don't have to understand. But we should remember, at the bare minimum, if there's nothing else we can find about that person that we find desirable, as in being a friend or knowing them, is that we are all from source. That is the one thing we have in common. And it is the only thing that really truly matters. I just wish people could get over all of that, all of this stuff with racism and prejudice. It really hurts my heart. I know I'm not alone in that, but it feels like I am. It feels like I just see so much hate and separation and dividedness out there. And I feel like a minority in the way that I think, and it just sucks sometimes. Sometimes I never want to go back to, I know I was not like that before, but I would never want to be that kind of a person that was prejudiced. I don't want to say, oh, I'm alone and I want to be that way. I just wish that more people would shift to a more open-minded and loving place, because it would make such a difference to this world. None of us are perfect. We all have our stuff, but we are all one and connected at the end of the day. So Anyways, my little nighttime message of love and peace. Anyhow, we'll stop right there. And in the next segment, we're going to read chapter 3, The Quest for Happiness. And I think that this one is another one that's not super long. I do have a few in here that are a bit longer, so I will break them up into 2 videos. But for the most part, most of them are pretty reasonable as far as reading them in one video. So I will try to do that as much as possible. So we'll stop right there, and I will see you again for chapter 3. And until then, please take care of yourself. Please take care of those around you. And I will see you again very soon for our next segment. Okay? Bye-bye.